Hi, Rob here. I create mountain bike videos using the GoPro Hero 7 Black. I want to share with you my whole process of setting the GoPro up, where I wear it, the best settings, the editing process, my entire workflow, so you don't just end up with hundreds of hours of GoPro footage sat on a memory card somewhere, but you actually can create a really great looking video that you can upload to YouTube and retain the maximum quality possible, so when viewers watch that video that you've spent a long time creating, it looks as good as it possibly can. So I've gone pretty much exclusively to using this camera over my mirrorless camera. I've got two of these and the quality is so good now, it almost negates the need for a mirrorless SLR camera. I've actually been using it to vlog, so I've got one of these little kind of setups that you can see here, and when I've done my bike reviews I've just taken these abroad with me because it is so light, they're so versatile, the image quality, as long as you're putting the right settings in, can come out and they can look fantastic. The audio quality with an external mic just works really, really well. And the POV footage that you can get either from a chin mount or a chest mounted camera just look absolutely outstanding. And this camera is so versatile. It really is a stunning piece of kit. But there's some things that I do when I set the GoPro up that I want to share with you, and I want to share with you my whole editing process so you don't just end up with hundreds of hours of footage just on your computer, and you can create some beautiful looking videos that you can share on YouTube and retain the maximum amount of quality, because YouTube compression sucks, but there's some things that you can do to get around that so you end up with a great looking 4K video for the world to see. So first of all, I want to share with you the setup of the GoPro. Now this is my settings and I prefer it this way, others may prefer it in a different way, but I just like a real set and forget setup, so you don't have to worry about messing around when you're getting ready to shoot, and you can just click and go and your GoPro is set up as good as it possibly can be for maximum image quality. So first of all, I'll take you through the settings that I use. Now, I've started using 4K 30. I used to use 24p on my previous GoPro with a gimbal, but using this, I prefer 30p. I think it looks a lot smoother. If you take it down to 24, you can't get the motion blur because you need so much light in here, and the shutter speed is really, really high, and it creates a bit of a choppy look on 24p. I much prefer 30p for that smoother look. It needs as much light as it possibly can get, so you can't really use ND filters if you're using it standalone. So I like to use it on 4K 30. For mountain bike footage, for POV footage, put it on super view. That means that you get the maximum amount of resolution, and what the GoPro does is it actually stretches out the side, so it gives you a real illusion of speed when you're traveling through some woods or through some hills or any kind of terrain. It gives you that kind of maximum amount of immersion because it stretches out the side slightly. It looks fantastic. Pro Tune, definitely have that turned on. That increases the bit rate that the GoPro records at. Shutter speed I leave on auto. EV comp I normally use on -1 or -0.5 depending on how bright the conditions are. If it's really, really sunny and I'm riding in woods and I'm gonna open up into a clearing, I put it on -1 because I like to stop that blowout that you can get as soon as the sunlight hits the GoPro. Now, white balance, personally, I prefer to leave on auto. And the reason for that is I used to use manual settings, so 5500K for daylight, and if it was overcast I would change it a little bit, but sometimes I would forget. So for now I've just been using white balance on auto, and the GoPro Hero 7 does a really good job on auto white balance, so I would recommend you leave white balance on auto if you just want the set and forget point and shoot and it's ready to go. ISO min on 100 and ISO max on 1600. anything higher than that and you do gain a bit of smooth, hyper smooth, but it gets pretty grainy. And to be fair, if you're using it on your bike outside, I've never had an issue with 1600 being the max ISO on this. Sharpness I always have on low, and when I'm editing in Final Cut I add a little bit of sharpness, but I'll show you how I do that later. GoPro color flat, this is really important. It will apply minimum amount of processing to your file and it will retain more dynamic range, especially in the shadows. The GoPro is not applying any processing to the image at all. I like to keep the image as clean as it possibly can be, other than the white balance adjustment that's on auto on the GoPro. Raw audio, I've tried, I don't bother using, so that is off. And mics, this is really important if you're using it for any kind of action sport and you want to retain some level of quality. I find that if wind is turned on, it will keep adjusting between the microphones on it and it just sounds pretty awful. So I use it on stereo, but I also use it with one of these wind mufflers as well. And I also do a little bit of modification to the case that I'll show you. So I've got a little bit of a kind of microphone muffler, dead cat style thing that I've just velcroed onto here. So you can see just there, all it is that just gives a little bit of extra wind protection, and that paired up with the sponge that I will link in the description, that just goes over the GoPro case. It's a really, really simple design, but with the GoPro audio setting on stereo and this here, you've probably seen these, they're pretty common, but that provides a really good, a usable, should we say, it's not perfect, it's a usable audio configuration for your Hero 7. So that is pretty much it for my settings, and what that means is I can grab this out. I've got the quick clip turned on, which you just press this button and it starts recording, and you press it again and it stops recording. I don't have to ever worry about changing anything for any riding that I do. I just make sure the battery's charged and the memory card is good for the amount of space that I need, and it is ready to go. And that is going to give you a really good looking file that you can go and edit in your editing program, and you can color grade and you can add some correction to it, and the output can look really, really great. And that is it. And the only difference is when I'm using my vlogging setup, I will link all this stuff as well. Look how small that is. I mean, it looks quite big for a GoPro, but compared to some of the vloggers that you see with huge, great big cameras and they're really, really heavy, this is so minimal, and it's such a little, easy, nimble setup to take around, and the output just looks really, really good. The only difference is I change it from super view to wide, because super view distorts the side, you get that fisheye look, which is great for mountain biking and action sports, but you don't really want that when you're filming something that doesn't need it. It doesn't look good. And there's also a plugin that I use that removes some of that fisheye look from the wide footage, because it is still slightly distorted on wide. So now the GoPro is set up, you've got a couple of mounting options, and I really, really like both of them. The classic is the chesty, which is one of these GoPro, or you can buy third-party ones that are just as good in my experience. You'll wear them, mount it to your chest with the GoPro case that you get with the GoPro and the J-clip that you get. It's really, really simple. Just gonna mount it on your chest. And you do need to play around with the angle. It's almost at a 45 degrees angle, because when you're riding, you're kind of riding, you know, down like this, and your chest is forward, your head's forward. But that setup gives you a really, really nice view. And I think with that, you get a real sense of speed and a real sense of the bike and the bars. You can see the top tube, you can see exactly what's going on. You can see your gloves and you can see the movement of the bike, and it gives you a real immersive POV setup. I really, really like it. Second setup that I use is a chin mount on the helmet. So this is just a kind of cheapy £10 mount that I've got for my helmet, and this fits on pretty much all full face helmets. This is a very short little adapter that I bought from eBay. You can make your own versions if you like. There's loads of different accessories that you can get that will work really, really well. And this is just the cage without the sponge around it. GoPro sits in there. Now the benefits of this are if you're out on a group ride or you want to show the viewer what you're looking at as you turn your head, obviously everything is in the shot. See the cables just tuck in, just down here through the frame. Oh boy, look at that view. Whew. You are the camera, essentially. Whatever your head is pointing at is going to remain in the shot, as opposed to the chesty where it is very difficult to move your whole body around, almost impossible to show the viewer what you want in the shot. So the way I've worked it out is anytime I'm group riding and I know that there's going to be some people that I want to get on the camera and have a chat to, I will use this. Alternatively, I will have this in a backpack and I will take this out. The beauty of having two GoPros is you don't need to mess around with the setup. Yes, it's quite expensive, but it's much cheaper than buying a separate mirrorless vlogging camera, and you can just point and shoot that. So, once you've set your GoPro up, you've put this in the position that you want, either on a helmet, if you wear a full face, easy. If you don't wear a full face, not everybody does. Or you want the chesty look, use the chesty, point it up a little bit to make sure you've got the right angle. Then what do you do when you're filming? Now, when I first started, I literally recorded everything. Little log, go over it, I would record that, or you just pressed record on everything and churned out loads of batteries and took loads and loads of footage, and that's really cool. The thing is, you have to do something with all that footage. You have to import it, you have to go through it. It can be really, really cumbersome and tiring to review all of that footage, and as you probably know, footage on a GoPro never looks like it did in real life. So that big log that you cleared probably looks like a little twig when you look at it back on the GoPro. So what I learned to do is really only press the record button when I knew something good was about to happen. Now, that sounds easier said than done because you don't always know when something good's about to happen, but I would recommend that if you are going on a trail ride, start recording when you're going down a section that you know is going to be really good, or one of your mates tells you it's really good, and that really makes your workflow later on so much easier because you've got way less footage to import, way less footage to go through and review, and you end up with just the best bits from your ride captured on your GoPro. So when I first started riding, I would use two 64 gig cards and 2 to 3 batteries for one 10-minute video, and it was ridiculous because I had so much footage. But as I've gone out more and more and learned what works, I've learned to just press this when the best bits are about to appear, or I've anticipated that a chat might happen, or a good section of the ride is about to happen, or we're just about to hit a particular trail. That's been really key. I know it sounds really basic, but limit the amount of crap that you record. Just record all the highlights, and that will make your job much, much easier in the end. So you've done your ride, great epic ride with your mates, and you've come back and you've got loads of amazing footage on your GoPro. You just know it and you can't wait to have a look at it. What do you do next? Well, what I do is I import it as soon as I can and start working on it as soon as I can, because it's kind of fresh in my memory. I remember some of the good bits, and I found that if I leave it too long, I forget. And if I leave it a week or so, I kind of forget and lose my motivation to do any editing on that specific outing. So I try and edit as soon as I possibly can. Coming up in part 2, we're going to go through my whole editing process. Once we've captured all of that amazing footage, I'm going to show you live how I work with all of my footage, the color grading I do, my whole process from beginning to end to create the best looking YouTube video you can possibly make, the best settings, the best YouTube quality. That's coming up in part 2, so make sure you're subscribed, and that will be out really, really soon. Take care. Bye.